Today I want to talk to you a little bit about shading. So here I have a page from my coloring book, and I know that some of you have gotten a copy of my coloring book already, so this page is from that. So if you've gotten the book, this is in there, so you might want to pause and go and grab it so that you can work along with me while I show you some samples here on how to do some shading. Now if you don't have this, that's absolutely fine. You could probably just use another doodle or drawing that you have, and you can just work along with me and do some shading. So for this, I'm really just going to be using a regular pencil. So here I have a Ticonderoga HB2. This is a pretty universal pencil. It's sold at office supply stores, and it's actually very affordable, and it's a very good quality pencil. So I'm very fond of this kind of pencil, so I'm just going to be using this today. Now before we get started, I am going to make a little sample right here on some scrap paper, and I'm going to show you how I hold the pencil, because I don't just hold it in the usual way. So right here, I'm holding it like I would hold a pen if I'm writing, and this is absolutely great if I want fine control. Obviously, if I'm making little delicate lines, then yes, I do want to hold the pencil this way. However, I don't want to create those kind of lines right now. I want to make softer lines, and in order to do that, I want to lay the pencil down, and I want to hold it further back. So I'm holding it in a somewhat awkward way. So sometimes I kind of lay down my hand like this, and I just use my finger to press down on the pencil to start laying down some of that graphite. And right here I'm trying to kind of create a gradient from dark to light and just laying it out. Now you don't have to hold the pencil this way. If this is uncomfortable for you, then there's no need. Sometimes I hold it this way. There are many ways to hold it. Everybody's going to have a different method, but really the gist of it is that you want to hold it further away. So don't hold it with a tight grip right here. You're pretty much just going to end up making little scratchy lines that way. So do your best to find some method that you're comfortable with to hold it a little bit further away so that you can make soft lines that kind of fade out that way. So that's the method I'm going to use for the most part, is I'm going to make little quick strokes that kind of fade out, or I'm going to make little scribbly motions like this, and I'm going to gently allow that graphite to get really, really thin. So those are the two methods I'm going to use. So let's go into that coloring page and let me show you how I do that. So let's find a spot here. How about some of these petals right here? So when we work into these petals, I'm looking for a couple of things. I'm looking for any spots on that shape. So the overall shape is this sort of leaf shape, where the overall shape is kind of going to fall behind something. So I'm going to show you with this kneaded eraser what I'm talking about. So when you have multiple shapes, here there's two of them, and they're overlapping. When two shapes are overlapping, you're going to get this little shadow right here, and you're going to get a shadow over here, pretty much anywhere where something is going under something else. So this one here, this one is going under this one, so there's a shadow here. So that's all I'm really doing. So right here on the drawing, I'm looking at this shape, and my thinking is that down here at the base of it, it's going to be kind of hiding under the other object that's right here, which is this big one here. So because this is where it falls away, that's where I'm going to add some shading. And so notice what I'm doing is I'm holding my pencil, it's laying down a little better. It's not up here, and I'm not holding it close to the tip. I'm trying to hold it a little further away. And I'm making these lines that sort of feather out. And because of what I'm doing, I don't even really need to use the blender. You can use a blender like this or a blending stump, and you can come in and gently kind of disperse that graphite. Somewhere else on this shape that I can add some pencil is up here on the other tip. And so again, I'm going to start kind of putting more pressure at the beginning, and then I'm going to release. So I'm just going to gently go like that. Hopefully you can hear that as well. My pencil's making a really distinct sound. It's going whoosh, whoosh. And I don't even really need to blend this too much. I'm going to try to adjust my light right now too, because I feel like it's probably creating some shine right here. Let's see if I can get it adjusted a little, since graphite is notorious for being very, very shiny. Of course. Let's see if that's a little better. So there is actually one more position on this thing here where I can add more shading. And that would be on the sides here. So again, I'm holding the pencil very close to the surface that I'm working on. It's almost laying down entirely. And I'm going to very softly just add some graphite to the edges. So you saw I did that edge, and I did this edge. I think for this I am going to use that blending stump. And I'm just really gently trying to disperse that graphite. And I'm also using it to stain a little bit of the area that I didn't already put graphite on. So you notice this makes it look like it's popping out more. Now, of course, you can add shading anywhere you want. For me, the reason that I do it this way is just because when I draw these, I think of each form as its own object in space. So let's say if I switch over here, I have these, what do these look like? Almost like scales. They're overlapping, so I definitely want to add some shading here. So let me move this over a little. Let me try using this other pencil. We'll see how this one behaves. So how about I start with these at the bottom? So it looks like there are 3, 1, 2, 3. So because there's a very flat surface here, I'm going to just start by using the tip to really gently just add this line. And then I'm going to very gently fade it out. So I'm going to add a line. And then I'm going to use some gentle strokes to kind of add a nice little gradient. So a dark line and a little gradient. So again, because of what I already did, I don't really need to blend it much. I'm going to look for a blender that's a little bigger. But I'm going to blend it just to show you. I'm doing this very gently. Just trying to spread that graphite out. So right here, we can come in here and start adding a little bit of shading to these. So I'm going to do a line right here at the bottom. And so notice that where I put these lines is where this shape is coming into contact with 2 shapes that are overlapping it. So this one here is on top. That's why I put a little shadow right there on the edge. Just going to add a little bit more gently to add a slight gradient here. And I'm going to find my stump, and I'm going to very gently spread that out. It just makes it a little softer. So there's that one. Let me find another one. I'm going to go with this one here. So this is where they're overlapping, right here and right here. I'm going to add a tiny bit of gradient so this gray I'm adding here is softer. And then I'm going to use the blending stump. So my shading is going anywhere where objects are overlapping. So like right here for this guy, here it is again. From dark to light. So here it is from dark to light. Let me add this one here, dark to light. And this, it's kind of overlapping here as well, so I'm going to add a line right there. Then I'm going to come in with that blending stump. I'm just spreading it out. So if this gets too overwhelming, you can use your kneaded eraser, or if you have one of these pencil erasers, come in and clean up any graphite that you think is a bit excessive. So I'm going to come in and do the rest of these. I notice there's a spot right here where they're overlapping a bit, so I'm going to add some pencil right there. And just go through and blend it. So I'm going to come in here. Here's one. Here's one. So notice everywhere where it's overlapping is where I'm adding some pencil. Looks like I have one here. And it's behind here, so I'm going to add a little bit. Notice that at this point, I'm okay holding it closer. I've practiced it enough where I know how to be really gentle with the pencil. So I just for being an example, I should show you that I'm holding it this way. But you'll notice that sometimes I do hold it closer. It's because I know how to be really gentle now. So as you can see, it is fine if you want to hold it however you're comfortable. There's no need to do any particular thing. I'm just sharing with you thoughts on how I trained myself to be a little more gentle. So I'm just coming in here. And so this blending stump, I'm also trying not to press too hard with it. I'm not trying to dig that graphite in. I'm just trying to spread it out. So I'm going to come in really, really gently and just kind of rub it back and forth. Because if you press that blender too hard in there, you may actually pick up too much of that graphite, and rather than spreading it out, you're just going to kind of mess it up and it won't look so soft anymore. And it looks like I just have these few little spots right here that I could add some to. Let's just see how that looks. Making it look like these are behind that line. And I think there's a small line right here. So I'm just being really careful only because I'm using this as an example so that you can see how everything looks. So there we have it. And it's just the tiniest bit of shading. There isn't very much. I could add some here as well. And then I'm just going to come in and blend it a little. So you saw there, I added graphite very gently in places where something was overlapping. Now there's other reasons why I do shading. So a really easy thing to do, let me see if I can find a good spot. I'm looking for stuff that overlaps differently. I think I can do it just right here. So this is a really easy spot. So these really big shapes that are right here, they're very long. And if I'm going to just be shading, then there are two places where I might shade. The first is here because it's falling away. So I'm really gently just adding some lines. So they're darker and then they get softer as I pull the pencil. Because this is a pretty big area, I'm just going to use my finger to spread it out. The other place I might add some is along this line right here. So I'm just going to, again, work in these little strokes where I start with a lot of pressure and then I kind of release it. And I'm just flicking my hand. If you have a different way of holding it, feel free. This is pretty much just the effect that I'm going for, and it can be accomplished different ways. I just think that when a lot of us get started drawing, we tend to be really scribbly with the pencil, and that doesn't necessarily help when you're doing shading. So I'll show you how I do this if I were to be scribbly. I would kind of work in little circles. But I'm working very, very gently. So you can see it's perfectly achievable if you're kind of a scribbler when you use your pencil, but you want to make sure that when you come into the edge So the very edge for me is the bottom. I'm going to add just a little more graphite. I'm going to layer it on even more. So let's say I come back to these, I can scribble in there. I can add more, like right here. So it's okay to scribble it in. Just try to do it really softly, really gently. If you press too hard, you're going to get some really harsh lines, and you probably don't want those. So I'm going to keep adding some right here. So because of the way that I did this, I don't really need to blend too much. I'm just going to come in with my hand because it's a fairly large space, and I can just kind of spread it out like that. So you can see it already helps it. It doesn't look like it's so flat anymore. So we've tried a couple of different spaces, and I showed you how I do some of the shading now. So let me know if that's helpful for you, or if you think that there are some other spaces that you'd like to see me show you. There are plenty of other interesting spots here, but I feel that for the most part, they follow some of those same ideas, that you're basically just trying to add a little shadow into spaces that are overlapping. So I think that's pretty much it for this one. Let me know what you think, or let me know if there's anything else that you'd like me to clarify, anything you think that might help for you. And so thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one.